Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a bookish trip.
Hello readers, my name is Tabitha Bouldin and I'm one of the authors with Celebrate Lit in the new Independence Island series. I'll be reading Chapter 1 of my book, Mishaps off the Mainland. We'll start off with the synopsis and then I'll move straight on into the chapter. So here we go. All Mel wants is to run the business of her dreams. Melody Carmichael's mobile pet grooming business might sink before it can sail when a favorite pet escapes her care. Doggy escape artist Daphne got a taste of freedom, and the Afghan hound refuses to be found. Enter Zeke Solomon. Desperate to bring the dog home for his grandmother, Zeke steps in to save the day. And working together with Zeke would be a snap, if he would just stop blaming Mel for Daphne making a break for it. Zeke is desperate to prove himself worthy of the Solomon name and step out from his father's shadow. With his father breathing down his neck and demanding he return to the company business, Zeke must decide whether confronting the man he admires most is worth the risk of alienation. Everything's falling apart, and Mel's dream transforms into a nightmare. She thought this was what God wanted for her life, but can you blame her for second-guessing everything? Was it all just a mistake? Chapter 1. Melody Carmichael picked up the 25-pound Afghan hound and swiveled to place the dog's paws on the peeling laminate floor. Ripples of satiny auburn hair fanned over her arms, a testament to Mel's hard work over the last 2 hours. Good girl, Daphne. Mel gave Daphne a pat before standing and reaching for the brown leather leash dangling from a nearby wall. As Mel's hand wrapped around the leash, her other hand released Daphne's collar. Sunlight burst through the artificial light of Mel's mobile pet grooming truck when Darcy, her best friend and assistant, jerked open the small door. Snippets of Daphne's hair whirled into the air, glittering against the light. "Hey Mel, do we have time to add on a poodle today?" Daphne yelped and jumped toward freedom. "Daphne!" Mel lunged, her hands grasping empty air. She landed on her knees, both hands extended in front of her and her heart in her throat. In her excitement, Daphne toppled Darcy, landing in a graceful fanfare of fur. Lean as a greyhound, only with 1,000 times more hair, Daphne ran, barking every time her paws landed on the pavement. Darcy stood and swiped debris from her backside. "Sorry, Mel." She held out a hand, but with Mel still inside the truck, Darcy was in no position to help. Mel waved Darcy's hand away. "We need to get her. Afghans are notoriously independent. Catching her will be a pain, and I doubt she'll come when we call. Follow her, Darcy. Don't chase her, but try and keep her in sight. I'll talk to Miss Evelyn. Call me if you lose sight of her, or if you catch her. You have a leash?" Darcy nodded and patted her pocket. "I'm really sorry, Mel. I thought she was on the table." "My fault, Darcy. Just follow her, please. We can't waste time." Darcy bolted with one final apology tossed over her shoulder. Mel stepped from chipped faux hardwood imitating laminate to sun-baked asphalt. She propped clenched hands on her hips and counted to 10. This could not be happening. She closed her eyes and pinched her arm. At the flash of pain, her eyelids popped open. Nope, not a dream. Her impeccable mobile pet grooming record had been tarnished, maybe even irreparably destroyed. Okay, so her reputation was still in its baby stages. It still mattered. One mishap could sink her fledgling business. Panic rose in a tidal wave of acid, threatening to choke her. Darcy knew better than to open the door, and Mel knew better than to let a dog off their leash, even in the truck. Now she would have to do damage control. Mel checked Daphne's progress. The escapee didn't bother looking back. Her gleaming coat caught rays of sunlight with each footfall. Mel would have smiled if she wasn't standing in the middle of the street with Daphne's leash in her hand while the unescorted dog ran pell-mell down Bradford Avenue. Darcy followed several yards behind Daphne, keeping the dog in sight but not close enough Daphne would consider it a chase. Despite her posh life and elderly years, Daphne smelled freedom, and Mel suspected she would not give it up easily. With a groan, Mel faced the two-story Tudor where Daphne lived. God willing, the dog wouldn't stray far from home, but Mel still needed to confess to Miss Evelyn. The dozen steps between her and the front door loomed. She'd been excited to groom Daphne today. Who doesn't love a sweet-tempered dog and her equally sweet-tempered elderly owner? Now each step dragged. What if Daphne's escape caused Miss Evelyn to have a heart attack? Would Miss Evelyn blame Mel and refuse to let her continue grooming the spunky hound? Nervous tension gripped Mel's muscles. Should she go after Daphne? Unless she found the dog and returned in 10 minutes, Miss Evelyn would look outside and know something happened. It'll be okay. Tell Miss Evelyn what happened, then get the dog. Stop overreacting. Mel wiped sweaty hands over her stomach and willed the butterflies to cease battering her insides. Stop talking to yourself and push the button. Mel tapped the doorbell before she could talk herself out of it, sending a peal of bells ringing through the house. Miss Evelyn, Daphne's 80-year-old owner, answered with a smile, her hand reaching for the leash as she always did. Seconds later, her smile faltered, then fell. Mel, dear, where's Daphne? I'm afraid there's been a problem, Miss Evelyn. Mel threaded the leash through her palms. Daphne escaped from the grooming truck. Sweat slithered down her backbone in an awkward trail, tickling her skin and causing Mel to twitch against the desire to scratch. Miss Evelyn sucked in a deep breath as her face whitened. Mel hurried to reassure her. I'm sure she won't go far. Darcy is following her as we speak, and I'm on my way to help. I needed to tell you what happened, since I have to take the truck and follow Darcy. I didn't want you to worry. Pressing a hand to her chest, Mel stopped her rambling mouth before she assaulted Miss Evelyn with more words. Seeming not to notice Mel's outburst, Miss Evelyn clicked her tongue. Oh dear, Daphne's never done anything like this before. She turned away from the door with a sniff and a wave of her hand. Wait just a moment before you go, Mel. Let me get Zeke. He can help you hunt for Daphne. That's all right, Miss Evelyn. Darcy and I will find her. Nonsense. Zeke is out in the yard building me a gazebo. He will be tickled pink for a chance to get out and about, especially with you, Mel. Miss Evelyn walked and talked, her voice fading with each clacking heel. 80 or not, she always dressed as though heading for an executive meeting. Her words finally disappeared, along with her waving hand and glittering rings, with one final admission. I've been telling him all about you, and let me tell you, he said he could not wait to meet you. I doubt that, Mel muttered, since Miss Evelyn had moved out of earshot, even though she had no idea who Zeke was. Please God, let us find Daphne. Unharmed would be preferred. As the words left her lips, Mel waited for peace. At its absence, she worried her lip and tapped the leash against her thigh. Spinning in a slow circle, Mel took in Daphne's luxurious living conditions. Portraits lined a wall to her right, the images cutting off in the middle of a severe-looking man dressed all in black. Mel shuddered. Usually she simply passed the leash to Miss Evelyn, then retreated to her truck. This was the first time she'd been inside, and now Mel prayed she at least wasn't leaving a trail of dog hair across Miss Evelyn's polished, wide plank hardwood floors. Real hardwood, no doubt original, same as the painted portraits. Probably old family members. Miss Evelyn returned with a man Mel had never seen on Meriwether Island. Tall and lean, with a backwards baseball cap over shaggy black hair dotted with sawdust. A loose gray t-shirt, tan cargo shorts, and black flip-flops completed his attire. Mel felt the groove appearing between her eyes. Flip-flops. He was building a gazebo while wearing flip-flops. Did he want to lose his toes? Brown eyes sparked as his mouth tilted in a half smile. Melody Carmichael, this is my grandson, Zeke Solomon. Miss Evelyn motioned between them. So, you lost my grandmother's dog. No. Mel paused, cutting off her sentence before her tendency to blabber took over. Technically, she ran away. My assistant is following her. Mel's phone vibrated, sending tingles across her hip. Pulling the phone from her pocket, she checked the screen and smiled. It's Darcy. She's probably caught up with Daphne by now. Zeke snorted and crossed tanned arms. You've obviously never chased an Afghan. Daphne won't even come when grandmother calls her. You make her sound like a magic carpet. Mel turned away and answered Darcy's call, ignoring the snigger of male laughter. At Darcy's single denial of success, Mel's hopes plummeted. From the expression on your face, I'm going to assume your assistant failed. Zeke smirked again, a dimple appearing in his cheek. When Mel slid the phone back into her pocket, Miss Evelyn spoke up. Mel, dear, I want you to take Zeke with you. Daphne loves Zeke, and will likely come running soon as she catches sight of him. She gave Zeke a steely look. I know you've been sneaking scraps to her under the table when you think I'm not looking. Zeke grinned, white teeth flashing, and a genuine laugh made his shoulders lift. I was waiting to see how long it would take you to tell me to stop. Well, if it helps you get my Daphne back, I won't complain too much. Just make sure it does not happen again. She faced Melody again. What if you can't find her? Melody tried not to shrug or scuff her toes against the glossy hardwood floors. Both hands went into her uniform pockets where she could fidget without detection. I'll find her, Miss Evelyn. She locked her gaze on the painted portrait of Miss Evelyn and Daphne, promising herself as well as Miss Evelyn. Nothing would stop her from returning Daphne. Don't you have other clients? Zeke shoved his hands into his back pockets, slouching his back against a white wall. Sawdust fell from his shirt, powdering the floor. Mel could feel the heat of embarrassment flaming up her neck. He was right, of course, but finding Daphne would take priority right now. I think my other clients will agree if I need to reschedule their appointments. You mean if they find out you're losing clients? Literally. His lip cocked in an infuriating grin. Before she could respond, Miss Evelyn cut in. Zeke, leave the poor girl alone. I've warned you about that mischievous streak. She waved toward Melody. I think Mel has taken you seriously, and I would be quite hurt if I was in her position. You know how difficult Daphne can be. Melody is not to blame, and I am quite upset at you for trying to make her feel guilty. Zeke had the decency to drop his head a smidge, and the smile drifted away. You're right, grandmother. He stepped forward and wrapped his grandmother in a snug embrace. I'm sorry. I'll help Melody find your goofy mutt. Melody couldn't help grinning as Miss Evelyn sputtered like an old outboard and whacked Zeke's arm. Daphne is a purebred Afghan hound. She is not a mutt. Zeke threw his head back and laughed with such joy even Miss Evelyn smiled. Before she approached Miss Evelyn, Mel slid Daphne's leash into the zippered pocket at her side. She waited until Zeke stepped back to put her arm around Miss Evelyn's shoulders. I'll find her. Don't worry about a thing. The elderly woman's permanently curled white hair rested just beneath Mel's chin, the smell of hairspray and aerolized baby powder filling Mel's head with memories of her own grandmother. I'll bring her home. Miss Evelyn patted Mel's back and sniffed again. I know you will, Mel. You might check the docks. She loves the water. I'm sure you know that. She stepped back and pulled a handkerchief from her sleeve. Dabbing her eyes, Miss Evelyn sniffed again and waved them toward the door. Go on, Zeke. This is not the meeting I had in mind, but it will have to do. What's that supposed to mean? Miss Evelyn plotted to introduce them? Mel opened her mouth to try and keep Zeke from tagging along. But before she could voice the words, Zeke opened the door and motioned her ahead of him. His eyes widened and his mouth flattened into a thin line. Mel could hear Miss Evelyn's heels clacking as she walked away. Zeke leveled a pointed stare at Mel. "You're not getting rid of me. She loves Daphne, and I love her. Ergo, I'm helping." She could argue. She could give a dozen reasons why Zeke didn't need to tag along, but she wouldn't argue with Miss Evelyn. Heading back out into glaring sunshine, Mel breezed past Zeke. Cute or not, Miss Evelyn's grandson didn't have the manners of a goat, or the sense God gave an elephant. Shoving her sunglasses into place, she pressed her fingers into her temple to stop the pounding. She stopped long enough to slam the door closed on the box truck before reaching for the chain to lock the door. All right, that's the end of chapter 1. Hope you enjoyed.